fantasy, thriller, horror, children's, romance, sci-fi. We have so many stories today. A Crown of Ash and Starlight, Two Kissing Bunnies, The Storm Chronicles, Wonderland, In the Shade. Do these stories sound interesting to you? We have some of those and much, much more on today's story and critique stream, episode 32, where we read stories from writers in the community. Writers will submit stories for live reading and live feedback. I've never read any of these stories before, so this is all brand new to me. If you want help on your story, make sure to submit now. We've read almost 200 stories on this stream. And by the way, welcome to the community. I'm Kauffman. I'm on a mission to help writers with the process of being a writer. So come join us because we're starting right now. All right. And without further ado, we're going to be hopping straight into the critique stream. So how do you submit? All right. So for those of you who can see, if you want to submit, all you have to do is go to the submission form and the submission guidelines. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. And all you have to do is fill out the questions. We accept all genres and all styles. We accept novels, novellas, flash fiction, screenplays, scripts, and all styles of writing, because the one thing they all have in common is the story. Storytelling is the one thing. So we apply storytelling principles. Essentially, you can expect that the type of feedback you will get for your story is similar to what you would see for a developmental edit or an alpha reading. So my feedback tends to be kind of in the middle of those two. As you can see, I like to do my critiquing. I like to break it down into these different elements of storytelling, right? Character development, world building, dialogue, plot or narrative, or tone/style. The reason being is when we're trying to get feedback on our story, it's so much easier when feedback is delivered in a way that's clear for what the problem is. When I, as a writer, am clear on what problem needs to be addressed, I'm like, okay, is this a character development problem or is this a dialogue problem? It makes the feedback loop for the writer so much easier. And if you see me highlighting your story, if you've submitted today, no worries. That's just a me thing. So that way I can make sure that I can touch upon the things that I want to touch upon in the moment, so I don't forget. And then most importantly, join the conversation. If there is something that really stands out to you, if there's something you really liked, whether that was a line that stood out, or maybe something didn't make sense, or like, hey, that could be better, then drop a comment. Let us know, because I promise you the author is definitely checking out, whether they're watching during the stream or on the replay. All right, my friends. So I am so stoked and so happy to be able to get into this. We're going to get started and get right into it. So without further ado, we're going to be queuing up our first story with a young adult horror as we are hopping into Wonderland. This is a young adult horror short by author Susan Mcgregor. So, Susan, whether you are here in the stream or you're joining us on the replay, I got your story queued up, and we're going to see just what fun we have in store for us today. So, let me queue up the page. All right, and we're going to get this all going here. So, this is the start of a novel. And we are going to have this all ready for you. I think my voice can handle it. I don't think we have any grandpa voices today. So, all right, and I got my highlighter all set. Perfect. So, without further ado, let me show this, throw it up on screen, and we will get into it. All right, here we go. All right, so we got Wonderland. Perfect. And we got this all set up. Going up with chapter 1. And definitely let me know if you can't see it. I want to make sure that we got this. I was like, all right, let's throw this up a little bit. The spacing for this one was a little funky. So yes, but there was a very specific spacing. Yeah, so I think this should work. The spacing is off intentionally for this, just so you know. It was very intentionally off than what we saw. All right, Susan. So I think I'm all set. I think I'm all set, actually. Okay. All right. So, Susan, I got yours all queued up. And without further ado, let's hop in to Wonderland. Wonderland, a young adult horror by Susan Mcgregor. Chapter 1. I'm going to be a world-class dancer, I said, dancing in the middle of the graveyard. I don't know why I want to dance in the graveyard, possibly for a ballet piece to get into the American Ballet Company. My boyfriend, Michael Seasman, followed me, looking over at the old in new headstones. I'm going to be the best dancer that the world is going to see. He headed up to put his arm around me. I know you well. I twirled my body around in front of him. I loved him watching me dance. It is thrilling for me. Why are we here again? Michael asked. Performing my next ballet piece in a few days, I said. I want to be in ballet, an American Ballet Association. It's my dream. I felt this was the perfect setting to dance. Very dark and mysterious. I'm going to be in the American Ballet Association, be a world-class ballerina. I stopped dancing. Michael stood in front of me. You are such a beautiful dancer that I've ever seen, Michael said, looking at my body from head to toe. He holds me closer to him. I want you to be my first, I said. I loved him dearly, and I want him to be my first. I felt that I was so ready. I felt this is the time to make love, just before I go to New York in the fall to make it as a ballerina. I have been with Michael for 6 months, and I know he's the one for me. 6 months was long overdue. I grabbed his hand over to the white coffin, a few feet away from us. Michael looked over at the coffin, then at me. I leaned over against the coffin, looking over at him. Michael shook his head. No, no. There probably is a dead body in the coffin, Michael pointed out. I continued to look at the coffin. It could be. More likely there could be a dead body in the coffin. I pulled away from the coffin for a moment. What if it isn't? What if there is no body in the coffin yet? I looked over at the unmarked headstone in behind the coffin. The headstone is not even marked yet. Why is this still unmarked? I found myself couldn't take my eyes off the headstone. Come on, let's go, Michael said. I'm serious, I said. Open it, I dare you, Michael said. Seriously? I asked. Was he really serious about me opening the coffin to see if the dead body is in there? Do it, Michael said. Do I want to open it? What if a dead body is in the coffin? I asked. I'm just as curious as he was. Part of me doesn't really want to. I was about to open the coffin. Michael shook his head. Please, don't do it. I opened the coffin. I looked inside the coffin. No dead body here. I couldn't take my eyes off inside the coffin. I put my right hand on the pillow, the coffin bed, the final resting place for the body. I hopped inside the coffin, lying on the coffin. I looked up at the sky, the full moon, the owls on the tree branches, nodding. Michael headed over to the coffin. We might get in trouble. No, we won't, I said, grabbing his tie and pulling him into the coffin with me. He climbed on top of me. We began to kiss. I can feel his fingers rolling inside of my hair, listening to him unzip his pants. Suddenly, we heard the coffin move. Did you hear something? I asked. No, he said, continuing to kiss me. I heard something, I said. I believe that I heard something. I'm not going to ignore it like it wasn't there. We continued to kiss. I noticed that Michael kissed my stomach. I felt the coffin was going into the hole. I held the bars tight. Michael held me close to me. I kept on screaming. I got you, Sarah, Michael assured me. I kept on looking at Michael. I didn't want to look at what was behind me. I didn't even want to know. How are we going to get back up? Michael asked. I'm afraid of moving, I said. I didn't want to move, and the coffin broke in half. I kept on groaning. Michael held me tight. I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2. I don't think I can do this, I said. Yes, you can, Michael said. Not too sure about that. It's far for us to jump, I thought. How the heck are we going to reach from the coffin back to the graveyard? 3, Michael said as we jumped out of the coffin. He jumped onto the graveyard. I was still sitting on the coffin, falling into the rabbit hole. Sarah, he yelled. Michael, I shouted. it would be the last time that I would hear Michael's voice, or ever, if I ever survive. All right, and reading. Wow, what a place to get started for a story. Oh my goodness. I'm like, first off, I have to commend you, Susan. Choosing to start your story in a graveyard with this young couple trying to hook up in the middle of a graveyard is so creepy. It's like creepy. There's but I mean, I think it's creepy for the right reasons that you're trying to. I mean, whenever you do something in a graveyard, clearly you're trying to set a vibe for it. So I think trying to take on a graveyard setting while trying to have some type of relationship dynamic, it creates a really interesting vibe. And I think that's going to be very, very memorable for your reader as they're exploring the story. And then where it ended off was actually a really nice ending. My favorite points of this were actually the beginning and the ending of the section, because the beginning pulled me in because the setting, I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. So they're maybe gonna hook up in a graveyard, because then if they're in a graveyard, I'm like, okay, something creepy is gonna happen. I'm like expecting something scary to happen. But then we don't get it immediately. I'm like, okay, maybe they're just going to hook up and it's like they're like some type of Wednesday Addams type thing and it's super dark. But then the coffin does fall and it feels like it's falling down this hole. I'm like, okay, no, something scary is going to happen. So I actually think you did a really good job on the overall plotting of it. And I think that was actually a really good call. I think some of the biggest opportunities for the piece is probably I would say in some of the description. I would say in the tone and style of the piece would probably be my biggest recommendations for improving it. So as you guys can see, let's see, I would say the biggest opportunities would probably be I was like, I feel like I was starting to get some senses of the character development. The world building was well done. I felt good about the world building. I was clear. I was like, all right, they're in a graveyard. It's creepy. You could do a little bit more description to add on top of that. But I think that's going to go more into the style. I think there's a little overuse of some dialogue tags that just might not be necessary, but I kind of have to go back and think through that. So yeah, and then the plot, I think your plot was a good decision. I think all of your plotting beats in this first chapter were smart. So we'll definitely go into it and see what we feel about it. And I could tell from your guys' comments. You guys crack me up. Let's see. By the way, Tiara, like, oh my god, I thought this was next week and all my days are mixed up. Well, Tiara, glad to have you here in the stream, my friend. Let's see. Maybe they need a cough drop. We've all been there, Susan. Thankfully, no open coffins though. Ooh. I was like, I can't say that I've ever experienced this in a graveyard before. So let's get into the story itself. So starting from the beginning, I think one of the really smart decisions, Susan, was starting off with the character's motivation. I'm going to be a world-class dancer. And I think I actually really liked that you started off with the character's motivation right here. I actually felt like this was a really, really smart choice because it makes it clear for the reader going into it, like, okay, clearly this character wants to be a dancer. So how come they are in a graveyard? Okay, and then we kind of get like the relationship building. Okay. And I think there's definitely some opportunities for cutting down on some of the text for sure. I think there's definitely a couple points where, like you mentioned, the American Ballet Company a couple times. I don't think that just could probably just do from some like proofreading and or line editing. You set up the two characters pretty well. Let's see. And I feel like we definitely got a little bit of a vibe with the characters. I think Michael's character kind of went back and forth a little bit. I couldn't tell if he was into the graveyard scene or not into it, because one point he's like, all right, we should get out of here, but the next point he's like egging her on to open the coffin, but then the next point he's like, I want to get out of here. So I think I kind of needed a little bit more definition on Michael's part. I'm like, okay, is he like a troublemaker or is he more like scared of what's going on? And I think we could definitely, there's an opportunity there. And yeah, so let's say, and then in this part right here, so the character says, why are we here again? She's like, perform my next ballet in a few days. I said, I want to be an American Ballet Association. It's my dream. And then you say right here, I'm going to be in the American Ballet Association, right? So this is kind of repetitive. I would actually just get rid of something like that. So that way, right? Because remember, we don't want to reintroduce more information to the reader if we've already shared it with them. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And then let's see. So you're such a beautiful dancer that I've ever seen. Yep. Okay, and then this is like, okay, so they're gonna have their first, they haven't hooked up, so they're a new young couple before she goes off to ballerina school. Okay, that motivation is super clear for me. I think, by the way, something I think that could really help. So I said dancing in the middle of a graveyard. I think you could set up the description for the area a little bit more. What type of graveyard are we in? What does it smell like? Does it smell like fresh dirt? Was it raining? What was the environment? Is this like at midnight? Is this at 12 o'clock in the afternoon? Right? If this is in 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's kind of a different vibe than if it's at 12 midnight. Right? I think it's assumed that it's late at night, based on the vibe. But I don't think we don't ever get like the lighting. I think we could play into some of the senses. And I think you could make this like really super creepy, right? Right now, it's kind of suggested that it's creepy, and I think it could really play into it. I want to get like, is there like these like creepy like these dead trees, or is it this like nice like well kept graveyard? And we kind of got the different graves, but I think doing a little bit of setup in the beginning will really make this opening chapter go a long way. So I think definitely give us some more descriptions for the setting. And then the back and forth does work for them. I think that's actually a strong point, is them going back and forth. Let's see. I continue to look at the coffin. It could be more likely there could be a dead. So there probably is a dead body in the coffin. Michael pointed out. I continue to look at the coffin. It could be. More likely there could be a dead body in the coffin. Let's see. Mast, you asked a good question. Like, maybe I missed something, but I was confused why she was in the graveyard. Confused how being a dancer and I was confused how being a dancer and being a dancer was related. Sorry if I missed something. So I know you shared, let's see, I'm going to be a world-class dancer, I said. Dancing, I don't know why I want to dance in the graveyard. Possibility for a ballet piece to get into the American Ballet Company. So I think the reasoning is there, but I don't think it's clear enough. And this is what I would recommend. I think she needs to say that she's performing a specific piece that is like some type of horror, like thriller, like maybe like nightmare. Maybe she's performing like a Nightmare Before Christmas type dance, and she has to channel her inner her inner skeleton to be able to capture the dance. So I think clarifying that for the reader will make that motivation stronger. I think the motivation is strong that she does want to be a dancer, but I think linking that to the graveyard will make it a little bit more clear for the reader. Great call out, Mass Toaster. Yeah, why? Those are some great adjective, great descriptions. Owls, trees rustling, a rusty gate swinging on its hinge. Absolutely. And Christina's like, also remember there are differences between graveyard and a cemetery. Ooh, that's a good question. I'm like, graveyard versus a cemetery. Ooh, what's the difference? Well, graveyard and cemetery are often used interchangeably to describe a burial ground. Cemetery is generally more formal and can be used for any designated burial area, including larger organized locations. Graveyard, on the other hand, often implies a smaller, more informal burial ground, particularly those associated with a church. Wow, Christina, thanks for that call out. I actually didn't even realize. Thanks for that call out. So, all right. So I think those are a couple good things. There probably is a dead body in the coffin. Michael pointed out. More likely there could be. And I think I would just make it clear in terms of a character development, does Michael want to be in the graveyard or is he afraid? Because you kind of have him go back and forth. I think the strongest conflict would be that Michael doesn't want to be in the graveyard and that she's the one who's kind of there. Like and it seems like that's what you're doing, but there's a few moments where I'm not sure, especially if he's egging her on to open the coffin in a bit, but he wants to get out of the graveyard. Why would he do that? Right. So I think there's just a couple moments to do that. Right. So if he's like, come on, let's go. Right. And maybe it could make sense if he's a daredevil, but he's also a scaredy cat as well. Right. Like, so he tries to do things all the time, but he actually just gets spooked easily. Right. So I think you could make it work, but you'll just have to make his motivation clear for why would he egg her on if he wants to go. And then they get locked up. I couldn't take my eyes off. I put my hand on the pillow, the coffin, the final resting place. Yeah, so she's super creepy. Like, who's gonna hop into a coffin? It's an empty coffin for sure, but who's just gonna hop into an empty coffin? But there's something so intriguing about them. Like, ooh, something creepy about this character is so fascinating. I want to know, why does this character want to hop in an empty coffin? I'm like, this. She's totally giving me Wednesday Adam vibes. And I'm like, okay. And this could work out well, right? For him being like, no, babe, get out of there. And she's like, I want to do it with my first time in here and like pull him. I feel like she needs to like pull him into it. Oh, what she does. No, he won't. I said, grabbing his time, pulling him into the coffin with me. He climbed. Yeah, okay, yeah. So you did do that. And I think that does work. I think you should show his motivation or his hesitation a little bit more. Like he tries to push out, but then the kissing like gets him into it. And I think that would work. Suddenly we heard the coffin move. And what the no, you said, and so you said you heard a coffin move. I think it's the coffin they're in, but they ignore it. I felt the coffin was going into the hole. I held the bars tight. Michael held me close to me. So this moment where the coffin goes in the hole, it just needs a little bit more description because I wasn't quite sure what was going on. So I know they're in the coffin, they're kissing. That's good. And then you felt the coffin going into the hole. So what is the coffin like leaning halfway into the hole? So was it okay? So it's like an open burial. It's like an open hole. For where the coffin's like about to go into. I think we just need a little bit more description because then the question I ask myself is like, okay, so if the coffin is like halfway into a hole, then why did they get into it in the first place? Um, but I feel like what happens is they probably didn't see it because it's so dark, or maybe a hole opened up, right? So they're kissing. Oh, did you feel that the coffin moves? Nah, babe, don't worry about it. Now he's into it. And then they feel it moving. And it's like, wait, something's happening. They look up, a hole appears, the coffin falls in. So I think we just need to be clear about that. And then you said that they held the bars tight. I'm picturing like a wooden coffin right here. I'm just picturing a wooden coffin. I know nothing about coffins. So I think clarifying what type of coffin they're in, maybe like right before they get into it, they're like, okay, they get into this like nice, like pristine, like metal coffin with this really strange insignia on the front. And I think you could really describe the coffin right when they're hopping into it. And you could be like, she like hops, she grabs like the metal coffin, it's cold in her hands. And he asks like, what's that strange symbol on the front? And she's like, don't worry about it. And she grabs them and pulls them in. Right. So there's a couple of different ways you could go about it. Whiteseer, there was not. There was no body in the coffin. That's why they hopped in to make out. I think she's just a super creepy character. So there wasn't. Yo, what's up, Bob? Welcome, welcome. Let's see. I'm afraid of moving. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the biggest, I think those are the biggest recommendations, Susan. I mean, like I said, the setting and the plot is so interesting. I think this is a great draft where it's at. I think the next step normally for me would be like, all right, let's layer on some description into the setting, into some of these actions, so everything's just a little bit clearer. But overall, I'm so intrigued as a reader. I want to know why they fell into the hole and if she's ever going to survive. I thought the ending was really, really smart, where he's like trying to jump out, and then she's like, okay, I'm gonna try it, and you then have the narrator being like, it would be the last time I would ever hear Michael's voice. Great foreshadow, great cliffhanger, great job. I love it. Excellent ending. So I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with how you ended it. So really, really great work, my friend. Very, very happy. And that's all the feedback I have for you for this one. Susan, thank you so much for submitting. Much, much appreciated. All right. So, what a great, great first story. How are you all feeling about that? And I know I saw a lot of great comments in there. Courtney, like, I agree. I used to work security at night in a cemetery, and that happens a lot. Whiteseer, I can 100% guarantee that he went to the graveyard to get some female action. That's what I feel like as well. My gut tells me that he is afraid, that he's probably a bit of a scaredy cat and he's actually afraid, but he probably went for female action. And Courtney, that's interesting, right? So clearly you have some experience. I didn't even know that was a thing, but clearly that's a thing that people do, going into graveyards for some private time, right? For a vibe. That's interesting. Interesting. Just checking. Most of the time, the coffin is not next to a freshly dug hole waiting for a body. Yeah, so I feel like, Susan, you'd have to find like a reason. You'd have to find a reason for it being next to a hole. But I feel like what should happen is they should probably feel it moving and then sit up and like a hole appears. Because it feels like something supernatural is about to happen, and I think that would probably be the best strategy, I think. Otherwise, yeah, why would then you'd have to find a reason to explain the hole, and then you'd have to find a reason to explain why they would get into an open coffin next to a hole. I feels like it would be easier if you just said, like, yeah, the hole appears. I think I would totally agree with that. So awesome, 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 awesome. All right, who all is feeling like the horror and thriller vibes right now? I'm like, wow, what what a really interesting start to the story. What a really interesting start. I'm like a little creeped out right now. Now I'm totally going to be thinking about creepy coffin vibes as I go into the next story. And by the way, I'm going to be queuing up. The next one will be Mythic, The Face of Gaia, an epic sci fantasy by author Adrian Santiago. So, for those of you who are in the community, you might recognize Adrian as our fellow ReadNow co-host, and his book was featured last month for the ReadNow community. We read through Mythic. This is actually a prequel section that he had submitted previously, and this is a prequel story that I believe precludes the book that we read as a book club last month. So this will actually be a really cool thing to hop into. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the WriteNow community. I've done and we've gone through over 200 stories on the story and critique stream alone. We're almost at 500 consecutive writing streams. If you're looking for feedback on your story, if you're struggling with consistency, if you're struggling with accountability, if you just want to finish writing your story and have fun with it, then the WriteNow community is the place to do that. So make sure to tap that follow or subscribe button and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, my friends. Woo! All right. So I wanted to make sure to get that subscribe ad in there. All right. I'm going to prepare my voice for the next story. CJ. Corey, that's funny. You were nice enough to let the kids breaking into the cemeteries have finish up their shenanigans before kicking them out. You so kind. Okay, so this is the sequel book. Wow. Ooh. We're getting quite a treat, actually. So this is the sneak peek to the second book of the Mythic. I thought it was the prequel. This is actually book 2. That's even more exciting. So that is even more exciting. So anybody who joined us for the Read Now Book Club for April, we read Adrian's book, Mythic, Shadow of the Spark. It was a great read, by the way. We had such a fun time going through it. And this sounds like this is the first chapter of the sequel novel. And Adrian, you're saying this is set 1 year after Shadow of the Spark. Awesome. Mm. All right, my friends, and I am all set. So we're going to get right into it. Let me queue up the stream. Let me queue up the story. Awesome. And by the way, if you ever get your story read and you like the feedback, or maybe you have questions, whether you're watching this on the live stream or the replay, always feel free to reach out to me if you have any like questions or follow up about the feedback that I give. Sometimes you're able to make it during the stream. Sometimes you can only watch on the replay. Totally all good. I'm here to help you with your storytelling regardless, because I want to see all of you succeed, and we are all in this together. All right, so I have Adrian. I got your story all queued up. Let me throw up the screen and see what we got. Perfect. So this is set 1 year after. Awesome. And Adrian, thank you for that heads up. You're welcome to just read the first scene of the chapter if it's too long. Yeah, I probably won't be able to get through the first chapter. I usually set a timer on my end so that way I can kind of keep myself on track. Otherwise, if I didn't like time myself, I would I'd spend like an hour on one story and then 5 minutes on another, and it would never be fair. Oh, man. Thanks so much for that, my friend. Okay. All right, I'm ready. All right. So, we are going into Mythic, The Face of Gaia, an epic sci-fi fantasy by author Adrian Santiago. Chapter 1. First Contact. Faye Lucia Noelani. Soul burned above the white canopy. Its light beams danced between the black bark trees, highlighting the mist swirling on the ground. Faye squinted up, and Soul peeked at her through the milk glass leaves. The air was silent in this part of the forest. No birds or critters ventured to this grove. 13th time is the charm, Faye said to her partners, lowering her gaze to the black soil. She sat in the lotus position on a tree stump on the north side of the Grove of Lost Souls, where the victims of a bloodthirsty monster were laid to rest. The Shadow's ossuary. All around the circular grove, the missing person posters on each tree faced inward, staring at her. Faye stared back at them from behind her fire red dreadlocks, which fell chaotically over her shoulders, sliding over her soft robe as she moved. She looked across the grove to Migdalia. Have the vibrations begun? Migdalia posed cross-legged on a large rock in the southeast corner, not quite achieving the same lotus position. Faye took a moment to admire her. Migdalia's afro was braided tightly against her scalp, in an intricate design Faye helped her achieve. Her clothing was rough spun, using animal skin, fur, and twine. My, how she's changed, Faye thought, smiling. Yeah, Migdalia replied. Her eyes darted from one tree's poster to the next, analyzing visuals only she could see. Like a tuning fork. Let's go. Faye turned to Lear. Her eyes widened with her smile, silently repeating the question. Lear completed their triangle in the southwest corner of the clearing, sitting on a stool he had carved himself. His hair had grown long, but he wore most of it pulled back into a tail to keep out of his face. The rest fell on his shoulders in bold, black waves like those of the midnight shores of his home island. Lear, whose very name invoked the ocean, proved a master at going with the flow, as evident by the gi he wore, which had once been white. A year in the wilds to change that. He's embraced life here, in the wilds of Gaia. Faye thought. She smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. Lear nodded a silent answer at Faye and smirked mischievously. Oh, yeah, he's feeling good, Faye thought. Faye took a moment to look over their auras carefully. Before coming to this goddess planet, Faye had built up the skill on the spark over time. She'd progressed to reading up to 4 layers of a person's aura. That alone was a remarkable feat, but she had unlocked something just by setting foot on Gaia. On this planet, she could read all 7 layers of the aura effortlessly. In fact, she found most of the witchcraft she practiced on the spark far more natural here. There was a well of power within her, akin to when she visited the core just 1 year before. But the experience of reaching up and touching the atoms sustaining life on the spark was one incredible surge of power, and with it, a connection to the source of Gaia's magic. This experience had unlocked every spell at her disposal. But when that light was depleted, the knowledge went with it. As Faye walked the face of Gaia, she felt balanced, powerful, and capable without overdosing on it. The power wasn't wielding her this time. She was in control, and she knew what was possible, what she could do. She only needed to figure out how. She was different. For an event like today's seance, Migdalia and Lear needed help from the mushrooms they ate to alter their vibrations, even though they'd done this together a dozen times before. They were getting better at it, but they weren't human. But they were human. They needed the tools. Faye was something else. To Faye, altering her vibrations was as easy as changing her breathing. The trick was mapping the frequencies, which might take her a lifetime. Her partner spoke the truth, though. The mushrooms had kicked in for them. Their vibrations were in sync with hers and those of their new home planet. Their auras were also clear and steady in the necessary layers. I'll have to talk to them about the others. They've got some weight to unload, Faye thought. Huh, we're ready, Faye said. She pushed the robe off her shoulders. She pushed the robe off her shoulders and let it fall to the black ground around her. She was naked, with goosebumps across her freckled skin. Let's behave. Let's begin, Faye hissed. They closed their eyes in unison, and Faye began a low, quiet hum, barely audible, as though from far away. Slowly, gently, she increased the hum's intensity. Lyra and Migdalia replicated it. The humming grew louder. When one of the three had to breathe, the others kept the hum going. The world vibrated with their bodies, with their hearts, with their minds. The changes happening within were happening without. From deep inside Faye's chest, a light began to glow. The freckles on her skin became constellations on the mists surrounding her. The light grew brighter until it was all there was, unobstructed by any clothing. Pure white light filled the world. Her senses burst to life inside her kaleidoscopic body. She could smell the bark of the trees around her, the leaves above her, the dew on those leaves. She could sense the souls of beasts that wandered the neighboring woods and smell the mists, which reminded her of gravestones. Faye could hear the birds flying miles above and the flow of a creek nearby. Her skin buzzed with goosebumps as the air flowed over it, vibrating in concert with the ground beneath her. Faye's body was still, but the world still trembled. Then, as though rehearsed, Faye, Migdalia, and Lear brought the energy back down. Faye's light went from blinding to warmly inviting, and finally down to that of a flickering candle between her breasts. The mist around them had receded to the circular tree line, taking on the hues of her light, which had turned a warm golden color as they swirled between the black bark trees that framed those weathered posters. All around them, dozens of black shadows with white glowing eyes stood before their respective trees in the spaces where the mists still flowed. Their blank, translucent faces lined up with their missing person posters. These were the victims of Marco Patti, buried here by their killer, their souls bound to the grove with some dark magic. Faye and the others stood and turned to face the visitors surrounding them. The shadows of ghosts swayed to the flicker of Faye's light against the waves of the fog, like reflections on rippling pond water. The spectators were an unsettling sight. Migdalia had once speculated that the spirits were likely in another dimension, as she sought a scientific explanation for this supernatural phenomenon. She'd explained a light cast onto a three-dimensional object makes a two-dimensional shadow. So it would stand to reason. Phase light shining on a fourth-dimensional being would create a three-dimensional shadow. And that was Migdalia's way. It helped her fit phase magic into an intellectual box. More importantly, it made sense. She might be right, Faye thought. Hello again, Faye began. Thank you all for coming. We're always here, one ghost said with a voice like rain. Yes, Faye said respectfully. Of course. I would thank you for your time, but indeed, said another, resembling the noise of a rock slide. We would call this a waste of time, another ghost said. But indeed, echoed Lear, interjecting with a raised finger. A few of the ghosts chuckled. The others tilted their heads in confusion. Both reactions gave Migdalia the creeps, as evident by the shift in her aura's colors. Faye heard Migdalia hum as they'd done earlier, and her aura cleared again. That's my girl, Faye thought. Just like I taught you. This should be the last time we call on you, Migdalia said. For a while, she added, a little softer. Well, get on with it, said a ghost. First, my boon as the mediator. Faye hated this title, but it was the one they used, and she wanted to avoid confusion. What say you, Daria Bazad? What is God? Each of the dozen times Faye had asked a new spirit this question, she'd received 12 different answers. Come on, lucky 13, The ghost of Dara Bazad stepped forward, bringing the mist wall in with her. Her voice was wind on the shoreline. God is water, in us and all around us, above and below, has no form or shape, fitting in any container, becoming the same as the container. Every natural place is holy ground. Every rain is a church service without walls. Life is meant to teach us how to flow like water, how to give life to others, how to refresh one's spirit and quench one's thirst. Faye drank in those words like nectar, tingling from the crown of her head, poured down the rest of her body. God flows but can crash with great power. Every storm is wrath, every flood is a cleansing, and there it was. No, Fate thought, that's not right. Thank you, Miss Bazad, Faye said, stepping aside. All right, and I'm going to end the reading there. Wow. Oh my goodness. Adrian, you did such a good job of pulling us straight into the story. Really, really great work, my friend. I felt for having just read the first book, being able to hop straight into it, I feel like the action that you decided to go with opening this first chapter, we get all three of our main characters, and they're basically starting the story with a seance. I'm like, that is so creepy. That is so creepy for the right reasons. I was like, I think that was a really, really smart choice on your part. And yeah. So I thought it was a really, really nice choice. I think what you also did a great job of was the character setups. So even though anyone who's read the first book already by this point, because they're going into book 2, will probably have read, will have an understanding of who our three main characters are, right? Migdalia, Migs, Faye, and Lear. Which they should, right? Having gone to the first book. But anytime we still hop into a new book, even though it's the same characters, we still have to set them up for the reader, right? Now, it might be a different setup and it might be less, but sometimes some readers, let's say somebody picks up your book 2 and they haven't read the first book. So sometimes we still have to set up the characters in each book. And I thought you did a really great job of giving each of them a setup, of really speaking to their change without making it feel like it's new, because they've all kind of changed a bit. I mean, like you said, and you even shared in the beginning of the beginning of the chapter, that it's been a year. So clearly they've been through the things. And clearly a good portion, at least of this first part of the book, is really going to be the reader going on this journey of understanding what happened in this year. Or it might just be like, okay, they wandered the land for a year, and now what they've learned is about to take them into the next main plot line. Either of those things might happen. So definitely really, really intriguing. And I could definitely tell the community loved it as well. Absolutely. I could tell everyone in the community was very, very much enjoying it. Let's see what we got here. Let's see as I catch up in chat. Yeah, we definitely had a lot of interesting stuff as we have the characters performing a seance, and then Faye is the one who's like guiding them. She's right, the magic user, and of course she's like the one. She's like, all right, she gets naked and she's gonna like lead the seance with everybody. I was like, okay, wow, good job pulling the readers right into the story. With magic, intrigue, and mystery. I thought that was a really, really great job. Yeah, Adrian, I thought it was a great call. I thought it'd be a good way to recap book 1, wrap up a few loose ends, and set up the tone for book 2. Oh man. So definitely a great call. Now, as I think about what were things that I think could be improved on, let me just clarify this. What we just read is actually in a really good place. I would say with where we're at right now, I would say overall the book is probably ready for, or this part of the book anyways is probably ready for, I mean, I don't know if line editing, it might be a mix between a line edit and might be a mix between like a line edit and a proofread. It kind of depends on if the whole book has gone through a developmental edit and if the whole story makes sense. But from like a purely structural perspective, everything was pretty clean. So great job, Adrian. This section is in a really, really great place. Really strong start to the story. A lot of the fixes and suggestions were for cleaning things up a little bit. Soul burned. Let's see. Soul burned above the white canopy. It's light beamed, highlighting the mist. Face squinted up, and soul peeked out her through the milk glass. So I got, and this is totally me. I was like, I totally got mixed up with thinking soul was a person. I know soul is the sun. Like, all right, so soul is the sun. I'm so used to chat soul now. That was probably just a me thing. Faye Lucia Noelani. So I wasn't sure what this is, right? So this might be the chapter title. So I wasn't sure if this is the part of the title or if this is something saying this to her, like if this should be quotes. But I think I would recommend clarifying what this is supposed to be. Nice. So this is the first draft. Yeah. So for the first draft, Adrian, this is in a great place, right? This is definitely ready for other eyes. I can't speak to the developmental side of it since like I would have to know more of the book, but from like a purely like style perspective, the style's great. Clearly, because this is book 2, you already know your characters. So like, I'm not surprised that you have a clear understanding of your characters. That's actually really common when writers get further into their series because you've done the work of understanding your characters in book 1. So really, really great work. But yeah, I would clarify what this is supposed to be, if this is a chapter title or if this is like something that's happening that I wasn't sure about. This could just be a chapter title for the character. Slight beam sounds Violet still picked out the milk glass sleeves. Something about me, and this could have been a personal thing. For some reason, I just wasn't a fan of this opening paragraph. This opening paragraph just didn't do anything for me because it's about soul. I was like, I would much rather the opening paragraph be on Faye, and then you mention the world. But I get it because you're doing setup for the world. But yeah, something about the opening paragraph just didn't do anything for me personally. I'd love to hear though from you in the chat. What did you think of this opening paragraph? Was this like a pro for you? I'd love to hear. But yeah, for me, it just like didn't really hook me immediately like I would want. But then once I got into the dialogue, I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to see what's going on. The missing persons posters, yeah, okay, cool. Or even starting with like them looking at the missing persons posters because that's intriguing. That's like a mystery, and that was something we didn't get to explore too in depth last book. But this is all good. I liked all that. And then we get Migdalia. So I think the setup for Migdalia and their kind of slight change, that was great work. How she's changed. Yep, this is awesome. Faye thought, smiling. Great, great, great. How she's changed. Faye smiled. And I know you're saying Faye thought here, but the only thing with this is it's obvious that it's Faye's thoughts. So you don't really need the word thought. So this would be how she's changed. Faye smiled. Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably go another M dash like this, but that's just me being an editor. No, I don't like that. Yeah, I was like maybe this. Faye smiled. Yeah, but it's like I don't know if that could just me being an editor. Let's see. Yeah, Migdalia replied. Yep. Faye turned to Lear. And I like that where basically showing the passing of time with their character setups, which was a nice change. We get the clear that he's wearing a gi. Did we get what Migdalia is wearing? I might just add like a part of a sentence on what is Migdalia wearing. You did touch on her hair, which was important. Yeah, I might just do like half a sentence on what's accompanied with her hair since you go into his gi as well. But that could be a stylistic thing. Yeah. And now we're getting to the magic power, which was a big part of her character arc in the first book. Awesome. And I think she had unlocked something. I would just make this paragraph a little clearer that it's about her power. And I think this is just the structure of the paragraph, but she had unlocked something just by setting foot on Gaia. I would actually start this with her magic power is, or something about her magic power. So the reader's reminded that her power is about the auras, right? So I think I would just reframe that opening sentence so that's a little clearer on my part. And this is only because this is the first chapter, and I think like the characters, I think you also need to set up Faye with her power again, even if very briefly. As Faye walked. This is good. The power wasn't wielding her this time. This is all good. She was different. This is fun. I think the moment I really started liking the chapter was when I get to them about to do a mushrooms trip. I'm like, okay. But they were getting better. So, okay, they were getting better at it, but they were human. So wait, Faye is not human then. I thought Faye was a human, but she was like a witch human. I might just clarify that. I really did. I really thought that Faye was like a human, but that she was a witch. So I would just clarify that. Faye, or does it mean that because they don't have magic powers, like they're like non-witchy? Gotcha. She's human, but she's also something else. Okay. All right. That makes sense. But they were only human. Was mapping the frequencies. We've got some weight to unload, Faith, though. I'll have to talk to them about the others. I'll have to talk to them about the others. They've got some weights to unload, right? And then once again, like once you've clarified that the italics is Faye thinking, you don't need to do that anymore because Faye thought is just unnecessary. And it's once again, Adrian, like this chapter is in such a decent place that really like a lot of what I would really like probably do by this point is just line editing. And I think just decluttering because the chapter is in a great place. Now, assuming that developmentally the chapter works with the rest of the story, like the chapter is, I'm actually very happy with. We're ready, Faye said. Push the robe off her shoulders. This is great. I would, and with this, so Faye's the one doing the ritual. I would actually have the characters. I would have Migdalia or Lear say that they're ready because this threw me off because I was like, Faye is the one leading the ritual for Migdalia and Lear. I would have Migdalia, Migs, and Lear be the ones to say we're ready, and then have Faye because Faye pushing off the robe, like that's a moment, right? She's declothing the first time in the book. We got Migs and her hair, we got Lear and his gi, and then we get Faye and Faye's in nothing to lead the ceremony. So make this its own paragraph. They close their eyes in unison. Yep. And then we get the ghosts. The ghosts are very fun. I thought the ghost was a lot of fun. I loved it. I think my only thing for this ritual, because I'm trying to understand so it's like they're going on a mushroom trip for their ritual. The mushroom, the vibration went sync. Did it say why they needed to do the ritual? Okay, yeah, because it is a seance, so that has been clear yet. And you haven't said why. So the seance is we're getting ghosts. I almost feel like one of them should set up. I feel like one of the others should set up something for the reader, like what is the seance that they're about to do, or one of them should mention like the ghost because I wasn't sure. Like I'm like, oh wait, so they can speak to ghosts now. I'm like, I didn't even know that people could talk to ghosts. I'm trying to remember if there was a ghost moment in the first book. I just don't remember. But yeah, I might just set that up for a ghost because I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. I like that. I think you just foreshadow that is what I'm saying. I say right before the ritual, you should foreshadow something with the other side. And I think that could be foreshadowed by one of the others asking her about it. Okay. Yeah. And then I mean, I think all the descriptions for the sounds itself were great. This was one of my favorite moments. All around them, dozens of black shadows with white glowing eyes stood before their respective trees in the spaces where the mists still flowed. Oof. So creepy. So good. It's so like I get such a visual from it. I loved that. That was such a great moment. That was Migdalia's way. It helped her fit Faye's mat. Okay, I think this is a head hopping moment. That was Migdalia's way. It helped her fit Faye's magic into an intellectual box. So yeah, I think this is a head hopping moment that you need to fix. That was Migdalia's way. So this feels like that's Faye. It helped her fit Faye's magic into an intellectual box. This feels like Faye's POV. This feels like Migdalia's POV. And then more importantly, it makes sense. So actually, this feels like Migdalia's POV, and then this feels like Faye's POV. So this was just a paragraph that threw me off. Faye, of course. I like that Lear is like the silent, like he says things like very rarely. I actually think I kind of like that vibe. I almost wanted a little bit more like hearing like how Lear doesn't speak, maybe right before the ceremony. Like it feels like they should, like one of them shouts like, Lear, are you good? And he nods with a grunt. I kind of want that. Let's see. Yeah, especially because you go into such detail for Faye disrobing. How come Lear and Migs don't have to? And that's something that I don't understand. Maybe it explains it during the ritual. Maybe because she has to channel the ghosts. Interesting. And I was like, I don't know who the god is, but I think this is probably like set up for world building, which I was fine with. I thought that was interesting. This is great foreshadowing. Great foreshadowing. Water. This bit where the voices first speech could be shortened down a little bit, a little wordy. Yeah, I would just shorten this down because you want to make the opening speech by the spirit impactful. And it felt a little extra word choice. Yeah, and I think you would pass Ayrton. Yeah, and I mean, I think with that, I think that's all the feedback that I have for you, Adrian. It's all the feedback that I have. I mean, the rest of the seance from what we explored and covered was really interesting. I was like I said, a lot. You could tell a lot of what I was, a lot of the feedback I was sharing was all things for like a lot more like, a lot of that feedback was a little bit more like line editing feedback more than anything. That was a little less like developmental. And I think it's because it goes to show that the piece is just in a really great spot. So really great work, my friend. Thanks for submitting that to the stream. And I'm like so intrigued now. I like really want to know. I'm like really intrigued. I want to know what this like seance is really about and what like she's trying to learn. I want to know why they've been wandering Gaia for a year. And I'm like, I want to know why Lear is like this like caveman now. He's probably this like burly like master, like wearing a gi, like a martial arts. I know he did have martial arts as part of his background, but it's interesting. It's almost like he's going back to his roots is my guess. So yeah, great. Thanks for submitting, my friend. Really, really fun read. And definitely gets me even more excited for whenever the next book gets out. Good luck with your continued progress with it, my friend. Definitely makes me excited for getting to my second book on Scarecrow, and I didn't finish the first one, so. Oh, man. All right. And I could tell you definitely got a lot of writers in the community were definitely enjoying it. Maddie, I saw you hop into the stream at one point. Welcome, welcome, my friend. Yeah, Adrian, thank you so much for giving us a sneak peek. That was super cool, especially since we literally just went through your book for the last month. Yeah, so super cool. And yeah, how's everyone doing? So we went from scary, spooky graveyard, young adult. We got young adult vibe in a graveyard to now we're doing our characters in a spooky seance. What? I feel like today has a little bit of a vibe for sure. Who here is feeling the thriller horror vibe? Let me tell you. And by the way, so the next story that I'm going to be queuing up, let's see what I have on deck. So the next story we're going to be queuing up is another. I think this is another creepy one. This is going to be In the Shade by author Whiteseer. So Whiteseer, we got your story on deck, my friend. We're going to be hopping In the Shade in just a moment. So stay tuned. We're going to be hopping right into that. Oof. Man, how are you guys feeling? Are you guys liking the story so far? We're kind of getting like a nice mix of like spooky. Oh, not spooky, but it is in the shade. So it's interesting. Don't blame me for killing the vibe. Oh man. So we got science fiction. Whiteseer, we're going into science fiction. So we got a different one, which Whiteseer is all good because the thing I love about the critique streams is that we get to explore different genres. And that's one of the things that I love about the stream. Hey, welcome back, Mary. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We just went through a couple of spooky stories or some spooky vibes, and I think we're about to change up the pace. So I know we're about to hop into science fiction. Yeah, Maddie, totally all good. And by the way, for anyone just hopping into the stream, or if you're watching this on the replay, welcome to the Story and Critique stream. This is a stream where we read stories for writers in the community. If you want feedback for your story, submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. We're about to hop into a science fiction story. And if you're having problems, and let's say like you're struggling as a writer, I actually got just the thing for you. Our newsletter for the WriteNow community, The Art of Writing, is a weekly and or monthly writing newsletter. It will give you writing tips, tricks, and strategies so that way you can be more consistent, more accountable, and help you with the writing process. So I highly recommend you should sign up for the Art of Writing newsletter if you haven't done so already. Not only that, you'll also get a free copy of the Easy Edit tool, which is a PDF document that I made to help you with self-editing. In addition, you'll also get our weekly live stream updates with the WriteNow community. So that way you'll know exactly what we got, what we're streaming. You'll know what our stream times are and what shows we have queued up every single week. So just drop that link down in the chat for anybody who hasn't signed up already. It's also linked down in the YouTube description for you. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So I wanted to get the Art of Writing in there. Perfect. 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 Okay. So let's get into our next story. We are going to be hopping into In the Shade. All right, let me get your story queued up, White. So Whiteseer in the Shade. Let's see what we got here. All right, perfect. And I think I got yours queued up. And Whiteseer, you can definitely give a trigger warning. It says you're like, let's see, can I disclaimer? Absolutely, Whiteseer. If you want to drop a disclaimer in the chat, totally, you're more than welcome to. Absolutely. Maddie, Courtney, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, my friends. Really, really appreciate that. Yeah, I really do try to give out some great stuff with the newsletter. I really want to be able to give out more. I want to get on an even more like consistent weekly basis for like the newsletter portion itself. And we'll get there. Right now, we have so many issues that I'm always able to give to new newsletter subscribers. But I know I've done some really good newsletters so far. Okay. And that's not even just me. That's just based on how you, the community, respond to the newsletters. Okay. So let's pull this up, and I have your story all queued up, Whiteseer. All right. So what do we got? So we have Whiteseer, and let me just see what you shared for yours. So this is called In the Shade. This is the working title, and it sounds like the feedback that you're wanting on it is just general flow, descriptive elements. You want to know, does the story open well enough and does it grab attention? And like you said, this is the first draft. So keep in mind, my friends, since it's a first draft, our goal for the first draft is we're not going to worry about grammar. We're not going to worry about grammar as much unless unless it's in a really good place. But generally with first drafts, the question we want to ask ourselves is, does the story make sense? Do the characters make sense? Is the plot clear? And then if there's opportunities to improve style, sure. But remember, we can layer on a lot of style in the later drafts. What matters the most in the first draft is, does this story make sense? So we're going to be hopping into that. Whiteseer, thank you so much for the disclaimer, my friend. Adrian, thank you so much, my dude. I really appreciate that. Anybody who wants to finish reading the that sneak preview of book 2 of Mythic, shoot him a message over Discord. Adrian can be found, and he'll hook you up with a free sneak preview. Thank you so much, Adrian. Appreciate that, my dude. Okay, so let's do this, and I think I have the banner all queued up. Okay. And I am all ready. Make sure we got this all set. Okay. In the Shade. Science fiction by Whiteseer. Chapter 1, Jareth. His legs still hurt. Getting hit was almost as stupid as getting caught. Still, he was almost safe, and more importantly, paid. Perched on the rooftop of a disused junk store, Jareth had stopped for a moment. His bright eyes scanned the dark horizon. Satisfied that no one was at his back, he slumped against an old water tank and closed his eyes. The ebb of time felt slow. He could feel every breath and every heartbeat. He could feel the pain in his leg. Jareth concentrated on the pain for a moment and opened his eyes. He felt better. Getting back onto his feet, Jareth hobbled for a few steps. He had used the last of his strength to get away and get back to Lowtown. Morning would soon be upon the city, and Gafranki was waiting. He assessed his gear. The tactical camo suit was intact, despite the leg being struck. His carbon silk lined long coat had failed to absorb any of the force of the blow, and as such was in good condition. His katana strap still held the blade in its scabbard across his back securely. At his waist, hanging on either side of his hips, were 2 Apollo core handguns. Despite carrying weapons and being fully proficient, Jareth rarely used them. He was there to steal tech, not lives. Wet work was best left to some other shade. The flat rooftops of the Lowtown dwellings meant the skyline of the central corporate sector could be seen in the distance. Huge, high-rise towers, painting a striking line across the night sky, backdropped by the mana shield above. The occasional red and pink streaks of a rogue bolt of pure mana sparking across the shield still concerned him, even if the city had been safe for 1,000 years. The buildings were smaller here. 3 to 4 stories was normal. They were physically lower than most buildings in most quadrants of Stormhaven. The investment into the area had been minimal, and as such, most folks did their best to leave. Although Lowtown was no longer his home, he still resonated with it. The feel of the streets, its sound and smell. There were many low towns in Stormhaven, and they all had their own character. This one had changed over the last few weeks. The people were reclusive. Some had left the area, and some were dying. But it was always the poor in the city that suffered the whims of the rich. Slinking across the rooftops for a time, he could see the mist in the streets. It was unnaturally thick, even for spring due to the incident. Others might say it was in some way his fault, but he had the creds to be out of Lowtown now. He was where he belonged, so what if the job wasn't as clean as he liked? It wasn't his fault they were dead. He justified it in his mind and made sure his rebreather mask was secure on his face. It was a half-face composite rubber type with several filtration settings. Moving to the roof edge, he reached out and skillfully descended on an old steel wave escape ladder to the street below. Jareth knew the streets, so switched off his lat AR function on his goggles. No need for the heads-up display, he thought. Besides, his Vilmari eyes were accustomed to the dark and could see better without the interface. The pain in his leg had disappeared, and he pulled his long coat close around his body. Sticking to the side of the street to avoid being in the open, he passed the flickering neon lights of a diner. The sign on the sliding door said closed. Another casualty of the leak. The street was narrow, but he crossed to the right-hand walkway. A rusty service drone flew close overhead, carrying out some menial tasks for its owner. Stealthily slipping his calloused right hand into his coat, he placed it on the handle of his Apollo huntsman. Feeling the ridges on the handle, he slid his thumb to the safety latch and released it. He was now crossing Hawker territory, and he didn't have the energy for another fight tonight. Best plan was to be prepared. Looking left at the next alley, he saw the fires of burning barrels keeping the gangers warm as they plotted their next score. A burnt-out grab bike had been hooked up to a stolen announcement speaker and was playing looped techno thrash. One of the gangers looked up, but went back to the warm glow of his barrel. A couple of others were trying to open a Hikari core delivery trailer. Likely hijacked earlier. Jareth clicked the safety back on, exhaled a relieving sigh, and released the weapon from his grasp. The Warren, which had been his home for so long, would have been considered oppressive to a normal person. It was certainly not in keeping with his ancestry. The Velmer, by all accounts, enjoyed open spaces and wide streets. Their eyes, which were suited to the dark, excelled it in the gloom. But everything was far too close here. His pointed ears also sometimes struggled with the closeness, but could discern sounds further than a human and with more accuracy. He could make out the hum of the odd grab truck in the distance, making their early rounds. Somewhere across the block, some alley crew had looped a synth beat to accompany a public service message, making poor taste of a safety announcement. There was coughing coming from one of the homes. The house itself was a ramshackle single-story abode made from an abundance of panels tacked into older panels. The cough was raw, a raspy grasp for life from an already rotting body, a prelude of things to come for many in the area. A few dozen had already perished. The cough was a symptom. Sumisho Corporation had said that the amount of toxin in the air was tolerable, but it was clear that they were wrong or lying. Graffiti covered the next building along planks, pinks and greens, spelling the artist's name arrogantly, labeling another's property. Jareth took his time walking through the low town Warren, taking in the energy of the place. Even in its relatively quiet state, he could feel its intricacies. It was early in the morning. Gangers would be counting their dues. Shades would be returning to collect their fees, and others would be carrying out all sorts of nefarious acts, all whilst the corporate masses were tucked up in their high rises. The scavenger kids would be upon the Warren soon, looking to collect the left behinds and forgotten ganger loot. The Neon Maiden would still be conducting business at this late hour. He just had to get there. As he walked past a building with broken neon lights, he remembered the old home he grew up in. It wasn't much, but just like the low town, it had its charm. The old front door that never closed shut on the first try, and the dim lighting. The smell came back to him too. Old furniture. His father worked hard, but they never had anything new. He shook the memories from his mind. That wasn't who he was anymore. Refocusing his senses, he continued the walk. Gafranki's place was just up ahead. Gafranki's bar, or the Neon Maiden, used to be a bustling shade hangout in the Stormhaven Low Trown Warren. All sorts of crews used to operate from there, including some legends. Nowadays, Gafranki kept his repertoire of shades small and discreet. He had mentioned going legit a few times over the last couple of years, but was fixing deals on the side of some community outreach with the grand notion of becoming a counselor, as unlikely as that was. The gaudy effigy of a woman stood a good 8 feet tall above the entranceway of the place. She had one hand on her knee, and the other blew a kiss as the lights changed from setting to setting. Other lights ran around the building, just above the ground floor, marking the place as the Neon Maiden. It was one of the scattering of larger buildings in the neighborhood. Standing out front motionless was Lug. Lug seemed particularly docile tonight, Jura thought. All right, and I'm going to stop the reading there. Really, really great work. So end reading. Wow. I feel like I was actually really pulled in the world. I'm very intrigued by the world. We got shades. We got these, what are there? Gangers. And he has some really interesting high tech stuff going on. There's actually a lot of really interesting world building elements. And it's still so early on. I don't actually know what to make of the world. I think so far I'm intrigued. You definitely haven't lost me as a reader, but I'm not quite sure what the world is quite yet. And I don't know whether that might not be a bad or a good thing. I think that's just neutral. But I think you have some great, excellent world building you're doing. Your style, by the way, is actually really, really strong. Whiteseer, you should be so proud of your personal style. You had some moments in there which were really cool. I feel like I kept going through it and I was trying to find problems at time. Like, I think the whole thing could, of course, be edited down, sure, for a wordiness, but like, considering it's a rough draft, like it's actually in a decent place for a rough draft. I kept finding these sections and I'm like, wow, that actually sounds really cool. That sounds really, really cool. Wow, all things I've never written before. Well, Whiteseer, congratulations, my friend. Really huge, huge congratulations. And I think, right, sometimes we don't know what our writing skill set or style is until we start trying to write. So I'd say you should be really proud of yourself for what you've accomplished so far. You should be really proud of yourself. That was really cool. Um, yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, and I think I could definitely tell your strength as a writer is definitely the world building is really strong. Um, the world building is strong. I think the opportunities for yeah, I would agree with Mass that the character building and the world building are pretty good. I think the opportunities for it is I think the plot, I think I want to clarify the plot a little bit more. Or at least I want to know what is like the thing that I want to stick around for as the reader. Um, we didn't really do too much dialogue. There wasn't really too much dialogue in this bit. So I think really the biggest opportunity is just making sure that the plot is clear enough for it to hook me in as the reader, because I'm not sure what was hooking me in. I think the thing was they're just okay. And I'll tell you, there was one thing that really hooked me, and it was getting to the neon. What was that? The Neon Maiden. I don't know what the Neon Maiden is. So I actually have a recommendation, but let's hop into it. We'll get into that. Yeah, Master. Like as a reader, I kind of felt like I missed the important cool part of the story. And I think the thing is, it's just I don't know what the hook is, right? It feels like there's a lot of cool things, but I think I need a defining thing, Whiteseer. I want like a defining thing to happen. I think what the vibe I get is it's like, all right, we have this character standing on top looking at this world. We get a lot of world building. And then like, oh, there's some interesting things. And the character walks down, he sees some interesting things. The character is walking somewhere, some interesting things happen, but there's nothing that's like there's nothing that like hooks the reader. So the question I want you to ask yourself, Whiteseer, is what is the thing that you want to hook the reader? That what is the question you want the reader to be asking of like, I have to know this. I have to know more. For me, what I'm doing in my story with the last scarecrow, it's the scarecrow is waking up and he has no recollection of who he is. The reader will then ask, okay, well, who is the scarecrow and why is he waking up in a strange world? And then the scarecrow's arm is stolen, right? So, and that happens within like 3 pages. So then the reader is like, will Scarecrow get his arm back? And I think that's clear, right? So you want to you want some type of thing to happen. So that way the reader has to know and they have to read more. And I think my recommendation is the first thing that kind of hooked me was the Neon Maiden. I don't know what the Neon Maiden is. I think it's the bar. I mean, you started describing, I think it's the bar. Yeah, the Neon Maiden would still be conducting business at this late hour. So I think what I would recommend is I would recommend in the very beginning of he had of like him like in maybe the first paragraph or the first couple of like I need the Neon Maiden, or like have to I need to find the Neon Maiden, or like doing something that like foreshadows the Neon Maiden. So that way the reader is like, oh, what's a Neon Maiden? And then you could use that as a hook to get to the building. And then the building, you can lead them up with the next question, right? Of whatever the plot is. Okay, so you want the people to wonder what the toxic air thing is all about, and why does the MC shrug it off nonchalantly? Let's see. So it's like, so yeah, so let's get into it. So the ebb of time felt slow. He could feel every breath and every heartbeat. He could feel the pain in his leg. His leg still hurt. Getting hit was almost as stupid as getting caught. So he was almost safe and more importantly paid. So, okay, so I'm going to show you an excellent example of cutting down on the filler just a little bit. So you say Whiteseer, so his leg still hurt. Getting hit was almost as stupid as getting caught. This is good, right? You enter perched on the rooftop of a disused youngster. Jareth had stopped for a moment. His bright eyes scanned the dark horizon. Satisfied there's no one at his back, he slumped against an old water tank and closed his eyes. I would recommend something that might be interesting that will hook the reader immediately. What if you started with this? What if this was the opening line right here? The ebb of time felt slow. He could feel every breath and every heartbeat. He could feel the pain in his leg. Jareth was slumped, and then you could kind of tie this in. Jareth was slumped against the so-and-so, concentrating on the pain for a moment. He breathed and opened his eyes. I think this would be a stronger opening personally, because this is such an interesting, well-written statement right there that still gets to the heart of it. Yeah, because you really want us to be questioning about the leg. Jareth hobbled. Morning would soon be upon the city, and Gafranki was waiting. Yeah, okay. So you mentioned Gafranki, and I think what would work for like plotting and foreshadowing is I would start, and I think part of this it might just be paragraph structure. So getting back to his feet, Jareth hobbled for a few steps. He had used the last of his strength to get away and get back to Lowtown. So what happens here, and I think Whiteseer, this is probably just an opportunity for you to learn as a writer. When you have so many ideas in a single paragraph, certain ideas can get lost. This is why you want to separate paragraph ideas, so that way they're as impactful to the reader as possible. By starting this thing with Jareth getting back to his feet and he's using his strength, morning would soon be upon the city and Gafranki was waiting. This moment, Gafranki is kind of lost a little bit because we're focused on Jareth getting back to his feet and we're focused on Lowtown. We don't know. You introduce the pain, but now we don't know what Lowtown is. Okay, new setting, but now Gafranki. So this now almost has less relevance because now we want to know what Lowtown is since we don't know what this world is yet. Then we have him assessing the gear. And then you introduce, so the new things you introduce to us in one paragraph is Jareth hobbling to his feet, some place called Lowtown, morning would soon be upon, some dude named Gafranki, him assessing his gear. His gear is a carbon suit, a katana, which is super badass, by the way, 2 handguns, weapons, and then something about shades. So you introduce in one paragraph 9 different ideas that get lost to the reader. And it's not like the reader doesn't pick it up, but it's because what happens is because you jam all these ideas into one paragraph, you're potentially, the reader might not remember the things that you really want them to be focused on. And this is actually a really easy fix. So really easy fix. And this just all comes into learning through the writing process. So what I actually recommend is separate less ideas per paragraph. So separate less ideas per paragraph, and I'm going to show you how I would go about it. I'll show you how I would do it for this one paragraph, Whiteseer, and then you can do it you can do it yourself, and you can practice. So getting back to his feet. So we have him going here, and I would almost do this. I would have this be one moment because Gafranki is interesting. Who the F is Gafranki? I want to know who Gafranki is. And sure, you don't necessarily have to spell it. Morning with, and I was like, the Neon Maiden. This feels like this would be a good moment. The Neon Maiden awaited. He sighed. Jareth Jareth sighed, getting back on his feet as he hobbled a few steps. Jareth sighed, getting back on his feet as he hobbled a few steps. Perfect. Neon Maiden, Gafranki. And I would do something like that, and I would leave that paragraph alone, because now we're going to do the setup, right? And now he assessed his gear. The tactical camo suit was intact despite his leg being struck. All right. So yep. So he basically was just in pain. Yep. The tactical camo, and I think that does work, right? Because he's in pain. Um, his carbon silk lined long coat had failed to absorb any of the force of the blow, and such was in good condition. His katana strap still held the blade in its scabbard across his back securely. At his waist, hanging on either side of his hips, were 2 Apollo handguns. And I think I would separate like this. Like, give us the one paragraph where we just get the cool moment of like, all right, um, tactical camo suit, cool, katana at his side. Oh, not yeah, at his back. Katana at his back, badass handguns at his side. So then the reader gets the visualization of cool. He's just inspecting himself. Yeah, and I think because you do introduce too many things, not too many. I think because you introduce so many, you could potentially get away with just introducing either the katana or the handguns, and then introduce the handguns in like a couple pages when he's walking to the place. I might do that. Of like he sees the ganger. I was like, I think the gangers. He sees the ganger, and he instinctively reaches for one of his 2 Apollo core handguns. Nah, he's cool. Um, that makes a lot of sense. I hope it came across that he is not human. It actually didn't. I actually didn't know that he wasn't human. Which is neither a good or a bad thing, but I think it's because we don't know enough about the character. Yeah, painting a striking skies. And then I mean, like, a lot of what you're doing with the descriptions is really cool. You got a lot going on here. The buildings were smaller, 3 to 4 stories was normal. Folks did their best to leave. And I think the same thing you said, the thing you cared about was you want the people to wonder what the toxic air thing is all about. The rooftops are time, they're naturally thick. All right. So if the toxic air thing is what you want the reader to care about, because you're introducing so many new concepts for us, I would introduce the toxic air in the opening paragraph. Right? Because right now we're focused on he got hurt by a job. Or I would introduce it right as he's kind of still like chilling here. If the toxic air thing is what you want us to care about, simply because you're introducing so many new concepts, and the reader's trying to get their grasp for what's going on still, because it's still so early in the story. So I would actually say, it's really interesting, White. You had the same exact problem that I used to have. I struggled with this for so long, over describing. So, and this is my recommendation to you, my friend. I want you to whenever you start like working on revising this, or maybe you're working on future parts, I want you to start taking a little less is more approach. Describe a little less. So that way you don't chance losing your reader. And I want you to challenge yourself, like, okay, what is like the 1 or 2 things that the reader has to know? Because here's the thing, you can add on the more foreshadowing things, you can add on more stuff. But just from what I'm seeing here, I think that could really help you out. So I would say cut back a little bit on some of the descriptions, and really focus and ask yourself this: what is the one thing that I want the reader to know in this current moment? And if it's the like the description, or if it's like the action and setting, play into that. And I think that'll really help you out. That's what helped me out when I was really struggling with over describing things. So that would be my recommendation, my friend. I hope that helps out a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, like Mary said, this is a great first draft. I think this is a really great first draft, my friend. I think you've done some things really, really well. I think there's a lot to learn from. So switch off his lat R. Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I'm intrigued by the world. I am very intrigued by the world. I just want to know a little bit more clarity on what's going on and who the dude is. And you said he's not even a human. I was like, wow, that's interesting. I didn't even know he wasn't a human. That's interesting. The gangers. I was actually intrigued by the gangers. I'm like, yeah, who the gangers? Who the gangers? Are they like these like are these like the homeless people of the world? Are they like gang members who like inhibit the world? I didn't know that. Oh yeah, that's right. You did say he's Vilmari. I remember that. His Vilmari eyes. Okay, so the reason that Velmaria was lost was because you've introduced so many things. Jareth knew the streets, so switch off his lat AR function on his goggles. So the problem is the reader's still trying to figure out what is the lat AR, like what's that? Why? My guess is that probably doesn't matter right now. So like, what is the lat AR of his goggles? No need for the heads up display though, he thought, besides his Velmari eyes. So then this gets lost because we don't know what Velmari is, right? So this then gets lost because the reader still be like, okay, lat AR, right? So it's once again like with the other things, it's just like if you really want him to know, if you really want the reader's focus to be like, okay, I want the reader to know he's Velmari, but I don't want to hit them on the head. I don't want it to be obvious, right? I would get rid of the description of the lat AR. I'd be like, Jareth, and I would do it something like this. Jareth felt his temples. His Velmari. Well, the problem is when you say his Velmari eyes, I mean, unless that's how he thinks, then it feels like you're trying to tell the reader. I would do something that's special about his species. Jareth felt his like, I don't know if he has a tail. This is just an example. Jareth felt his tail swing to and fro. He cursed. He cursed his Velmari heritage. He cursed his Velmari heritage that made him stand out. That made him stand out like a cat. I don't know. I'm not saying he has a tail, but this is just an example. Oh, that's so cool. The Velmari are the elves. Jerry. Okay, so then I actually like that. Jareth felt his pointed ears instinctively. Right? So you see, if I want the reader to focus to know that he's Velmari and I want that to be clear, I'm going to do an entire paragraph about his Velmari thing. But I'm going to frame it so that way I'm not saying, right? If I wanted to be direct, I could be like, Jareth is Jared. That's funny. Jareth is Velmari, right? If I want to be direct, I could be like, Jareth is Vilmari. I could, of course, there's times to be direct, but I don't think this is one of those times. You want to do it like Jareth felt his pointed ears instinctively. He cursed how they made him stand out. He cursed his Velmari heritage for how they made him stand out. Even the gangers, low the low level homeless dudes that they were had normal human ears. I don't know, that's just an example, but you get the point, right? So it's basically like I'm focusing on his heritage, and that would be my recommendation. I'll highlight this if you just want to see, right? So that way you just know it's mine. So I'll highlight that. And yep, that is. So yeah, Whiteseer, that's all that I got for you, my friend. I hope that helps a little bit because I got to move right along. So, but I hope that helps. I know we went into a couple different examples there, but once again, like, I hope that you feel really proud of what you've accomplished because I'll tell you, when I first started writing, I would not have felt as confident as you to be able to like share my stuff like that and be able to get feedback. Like, you have so many supportive writers here in the community, and I would love to see how the story continues to evolve. My gut tells me you have a really cool world because you've introduced some awesome things. And I'm like I'm intrigued. I'm so intrigued by the world. So like keep up the work, and I'd love to see I'd love to see more and see how you continue to grow as a writer, my friend. Awesome. Yeah, Mary, I would say that as well. Like, I would identify the MC in the opening first or second paragraph. I had no image of him and could not connect. Yeah, and I think it's because the focus was on the pain. I almost think that that as the reader, like we should know about him being Vilmari in the beginning. I think that would be important because I think what it is we need a setup for the character. Right now, the setup is that the character's in pain, but I think what should happen is the character should be in pain. He's basically sitting there. Maybe he feels his ears thin because you technically give us a description of what he's wearing, but I feel like it would be more important for us to know that he's Vilmari, right? So I would be almost like, all right, he's in pain. Let's get that part out of the way. That hooks the reader. I need to get to the neon lady. All right. I don't want to think about that. Oh, my ears. They'll curse my Vilmari heritage. All right. I'm going to make sure that my armor's good. Yeah, I think so as well, Whiteseer. I think you did more world building setup than character. And like remember, world building is important, but readers do not connect emotionally with world building. Readers connect emotionally with characters. So keep that in mind. 10 times out of 10, readers will always connect emotionally with the character over world. World building is to elevate the character journey. Sweet. Awesome. Excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing how it evolves. All right, my friend. So I feel good. I feel wonderful. Oh my goodness. So I feel great. And I love actually that we're getting very different styles. I love that we're getting very different genres of storytelling in our critique stream today. Woof. All right. Who's ready for the next one? I'm like, Kauffman is all ready. And yeah, I was like, what? Yes, Kauffman is all ready to hop into the next reading. Okay. Got to prepare my voice. And all right, so the next story we're going to be hopping into is from another writer, from another of our newer writers to the community. It is Two Kissing Bunnies. This is a flash fiction by author Kalvin. So Kalvin, I'm queuing your story up on deck, and I'm like, what is going to happen? Two Kissing Bunnies, a flash fiction. So it's like beyond it being flash fiction, I don't even know what the genre is. So we're going to see. We're going to see what this story is. All right. So that's what we're going to be hopping into next. And if you're enjoying the stream, share it with a friend. Help us find and share it with other writers in the community. With the more styles of writers we bring in, the more genres, the more skill levels, the more of all the different experience levels of writers, the more that we can grow each other and help each other evolve as writers. So tap that share button and share the stream with a friend. All right. Woof. And we are going to be hopping straight into the next one with this story. So let me get the story queued up. All right. So we got Two Kissing Bunnies. I'm like, I'm so intrigued by this title. I really want to know what the story is about, actually. I really want to know. Once again, I don't read any of the stories, so who knows? And by the way, if you're just hopping into the stream or if you're watching this on the replay, welcome. This is the story and critique stream where we read stories from writers in the community. If you want feedback for your story, submit now. Link down in the YouTube description down below. We read all genres, all styles, all skill levels. We've done almost 200 stories and many, many more to come. All right. So hopping right into the next one, we even get a picture setup, which I love. So let me cue this up. All right. Ooh, we get that. Let's look at that picture right there. It's like, oh, let's see if I can make this bigger. All right, I'm making the picture bigger so you can see it clearly. Look at this. So the story is called Two Kissing Bunnies. And I was like, all right, guys, this is our story. So my guess is this was probably used as inspiration, maybe. I was like, interesting. So I'm very curious to see what we've got in store. So without further ado, all right. Two Kissing Bunnies, a flash fiction by author Kalvin. You bought it a few months ago. You dragged me to a thrift store and went on and on about the importance of reusing and upcycling. Then you stopped in your tracks. I followed your eyes and landed on this dumb little hanger. Two wooden bunnies kiss, coming together to make up the shoulders. It was meant for children. Too small to hold up your clothing, but you bought it without a second thought. When I asked, "What do you need that for?" you chuckled and said, "I don't need it. I want it." As if it was the simplest thing in the world. I guess for you it was. The next day, you bought nails and made a whole event out of hanging it. How did you get the living room to look like that? I was watching, and I still don't understand how the couch ended up tipped halfway across the room. I pass by that hanger every day. It became background noise. But now we're here, a few months later. I sit by your side, and I try to weasel in more time when the nurses tell me visiting hours are over. You laugh and joke as if nothing is wrong, but you're in a hospital bed, and you've been here for weeks. I'm your caretaker. I should have known something was wrong. You fell asleep an hour ago, and I can't help but think about that hanger. It meant so much to you in such a short amount of time, and I never understood it. It was just another decoration on the wall, but you treated it like a sliver of daylight after wandering around at night. Could something so simple bring so much joy? I can't help but to think that there must be something more to it. The bunnies look like you in an odd way. Maybe it's the fact you bleached your hair a few days before you went to the hospital. Or maybe it's the fact that bunnies are as lanky as you are. Or maybe it's just a feeling. You're always so sweet, so kind. Always cracking a joke at any and every opportunity. You radiate joy wherever you go. I've seen people light up, and whenever you walk in a room, you're that person. You're a sweet person. Maybe you saw yourself in them, saw another ball of light. Maybe I could be the other bunny. Maybe I could be just as sweet, something that radiates joy. But this is a children's hanger, something without meaning. These are just passing thoughts. And reading. All right, so that one was definitely a little bit of a shorter piece. Now, granted, of course, that was flash fiction, and I'm curious what the word count for that piece was. Let's see, I want to say that word count was 430. Okay, yeah, so that's 430. So it kind of felt like it almost felt like it was like the kind of like the setup. I felt like something was about to happen, but I feel like you did such a good job of exploring something that's like a very dark subject in a very short period of time without telling us what was happening, right? And clearly you did a lot of subtextual references to things which were really smartly done. I feel like where the story was at the end, and I don't know if this was like the full piece or if this is kind of like what you're working on so far, I'm not sure, but I feel like with what you have set up, I feel like the next beat could be something that's like very like heavy and emotional, and you could really like pull at the reader's heartstrings because you've done a great job of setting up this dynamic between our protagonist and this the one that they love and they care about, who's now in the hospital, probably dying or something of some type of terminal disease that we don't know. And I was like, I don't know if we actually have to know what the disease is, but clearly, if the protagonist thinks that they are a caretaker, it's something really bad. And I think you've done a good job of making the reader really intrigued through this random object, this bunny hanger, which is so well done, because you easily could have gone like, okay, like my partner is in the hospital and this is the thing that's happening and so on and so forth, but you used a hanger as an emotional object to really pull into the way that they felt about the character. And I thought that was so beautifully done. I absolutely loved that. I thought that was really, really strongly done. So really great work on that part. What I would say is I would think some of the opportunities for it. Let me get into it. So I think some of the opportunities for it. Hmm. I think you could add to the plot a little bit. Now, granted, you have about now generally flash fiction is like 1,000 words max on average, so you probably could flesh it out a little bit if you wanted to. I almost feel like the question I ask is, so the present moment is the character is in the hospital. Um, why? What made the character think about that bunny hanger? And you say this is just passing thoughts, right? But this is a children's hanger, something without meaning. These are just passing thoughts. What made the character think about that bunny hanger specifically? I almost feel like it would be strong if the character pulled the bunny hanger out, or if the reason they're looking at it is because they're holding on to it. Like maybe it was something that reminded them of the person that they have to be a caretaker for. Um, or maybe they're looking at a picture. They're looking at a picture of them and the one that they love. And that bunny hanger, that stupid bunny hanger, is hanging in the background. Because maybe you describe the one who's the loved one as someone who's like the life, like the joy, like always cracking jokes. Like, what if like when he put it up, he's like, all right, I want you to take a picture of it. I want you to take a picture. And our protagonist could have been like, I didn't want to take a picture. I was disheveled, but of course he had to take it. And the living room is half a mess. And he's smiling his goofy smile with that stupid bunny hanger. You could do that, right? Like maybe that's what reminds. Like maybe she's looking at a picture of them. That could be a cool way to go about it. So I think that's what I would recommend. I would recommend just how did they think about the bunny hanger specifically in the present moment of the hospital. But all of the things that you're doing were just a really great job. It was meant for children, too small to hold up your clothing, but you bought it without a second thought. This does a really great job of character building without telling us that this is so smart. This tells us so much about this loved one without telling us anything about the loved one. I absolutely love that. Such great work on that part. You chuckled and said, I don't need it. I want it. As if it was the simplest thing in the world. I guess for you, it was. This is so great. Like, I absolutely love this. This was such a great way of developing the loved one character. And it really contrasts against the two of them. Yeah. And I think between this moment, it became back. Oh, by the way, it became background noise. What a great comment. I pass by the hanger every day. It became background noise. You could have just said, I pass by that hangar every day. It was boring, but you said it became background noise. What a great style, by the way. Um, I would, if you have some more room for word choice, I would add a little bit more here in like what something that happened in between here, right? Before you get to the but now we're here. I feel like this is a moment where you could probably pull on the heartstrings a little bit, where you could have like a really like funny moment. I feel like give us another goofy moment of like it became background noise. I remember I had even forgotten about it, and there's one time he said, yo, some like rabbit reference of like, do you want a carrot? And I said, oh, I don't know. He's like joking with like the bunny hanger. It's something that's really goofy and stupid and quirky. And I feel like you should do something that makes us feel like we want to love that character, because you're about to give us that emotional sucker punch in the next paragraph. I think that would be my recommendation. And I think you could really, I think if you did it in a certain way, if you make the reader care even more, you could probably have your reader crying by the end of this. I think you could really have them wanting to tear up because you do such a good job of contrasting in this flash fiction, and that is hard. It's difficult to get a reader to feel an emotion in a piece of flash fiction. It's even more difficult to get them to feel a strong emotion. And that's simply because you have so little time to make the reader A, understand what's going on, B, care what's going on, and then C, feel a deep emotional investment. It's very difficult to accomplish in flash fiction. Hence, a reason that flash fiction at its heart is difficult, but it's a great thing to practice. Yeah, Mary, that could be a good strategy. Maybe have the caretaker adjusting the covers or something in the beginning, then notices the hanger, maybe make more reference to a return to the patient's childhood. That could totally work. That could absolutely work. What the thing about the hanger? Yeah, and I think those are, you had a few days. Yeah, and I think what I want is I want a few more of his jokes. So by the time you're telling us like you're always so sweet, so kind, always cracking a joke at any and every opportunity, I want you to give me a couple more examples before this moment of what types of jokes that he cracks. You gave this one. I don't need it. I want it. This is good. I would recommend between here and this moment, give us two more specific memories of him cracking a joke. Everyone knows I'm always a fan of the rule of threes. I think if you've had him crack three separate jokes, by the time you get here, the reader will like, oh that guy, that guy, him and his corny or his clever humor. And this is such a sweet moment. Maybe I could be the other bunny. Maybe I could be just, this is such a sweet moment. Oh, that's like, this is such a sweet moment, by the way. Really, really strong. And then this is them trying to minimize the way that they're feeling. So this is them like maybe hopeful, and then no, they're minimizing. This is such a thing that somebody would do, which tells me that the next beat of the story is why you could then do a sucker punch because they're like, oh yeah, I feel hopeful. Oh no, I don't feel hopeful. And now you can make the character feeling like darker, but then feel inspired by him. And there's like a couple of directions you could go, but I think you could really pull on the heartstrings and whatever happens next. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, my friend. Once again, really great work on a flash fiction. Really, really great work. All right. And that is all that I got for you. So thank you so much for submitting that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Much, much appreciated, my friend. And oof. All right. So what a change of story. What a change of style, right? We got horror. Okay, so we got thriller, we got sci-fi, we got like world, we got more like high sci-fi. So we got low sci-fi and high sci-fi scenes. And then we got a like emotional, like real, like almost feels like it might be a memoir potentially. So yeah, I felt really, really great about what we just accomplished and what we covered. And I am so happy with the stories that we got today. Now, on that note, it is going to bring us to this part of the stream. So, like I said, I got to call the stream a little early today because of my schedule. But before we wrap up here and we look towards creative writing on the morrow, I'm actually going to be back tomorrow. Now, originally we had a podcast episode scheduled, but due to extenuating circumstances, we're going to be canceling the podcast. We're going to be canceling the podcast episode, and we will be doing probably a writing sprint. I went back and forth on doing like a specialty stream, but I think I'm just so slammed that I haven't even had the time to do planning for something. So I think we're just going to do some writing sprints tomorrow. I really need to get work on Scarecrow because I've been so busy. My week this week has kind of been mixed. So I'm actually really wanting to get work on my menagerie of 20-30 animals. So yeah, so come back and join us tomorrow. We'll be back at our earlier time of tomorrow is the 4th at 1:30. So I'll be back. We'll do a writing sprint stream around 1:30 p.m., 2, 3, 4:30 p.m., 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. Come join us for some writing tomorrow. It'll be a super casual day. And yeah, let's try to end off the weekend strong. Maybe we can check in and see how everyone's doing on their storytelling. So that's what I got for you. And if you're looking for something to watch next, go check out to see other stories in the Story and Critique Show. Like I said, we've done almost 200 stories, and we're on, this was what, episode 42. So we've done 41 episodes, 42 including today, and there are so many stories to check out from. If you want to go check out previous episodes, it's linked down in the Reading Sprints for Storytellers playlist. We also have the Reading Sprints archive. So if you want to look at which episode has which stories, Courtney made an incredible archive of every single episode and every single story and which story was read. That's all linked down in the YouTube description. Go check it out so that way the fun doesn't end. And if you still want to get in some writing, I know Chat Soul is actually right now, they're doing a co-working writing session in the Discord right now. So if you want to go get some writing in, like you're feeling a little motivated or inspired, go join Chat Soul. Go join the co-working session. Go get some work in over in the Discord. If you're not a Discord member, linked down in the YouTube description down below. So definitely. And then I know I saw a couple of questions. Eli, I just want to double check if my submission was received. I get that you ran out of time. Yeah, Eli, I did receive your submission. I had such a high volume of submissions. So once again, yeah, if I didn't get to your submission story this time, totally understandable. Once again, when we have high volumes of submissions, sometimes the submissions end up getting pushed off. But yeah, Eli, I definitely have yours. I definitely have your submission. I'm going to try to have it queued up for the next critique show, definitely. And then the next story and critique show is actually going to be the first one that I've done, I think, in 40 episodes. That's not going to be on a Saturday. So the next critique show actually falls on like the day I'm celebrating my birthday. So I'm actually going to push it off to that Sunday. So the next critique show episode 43, is going to be on Sunday, May 18th, which ironically is the same day as the deadline for the Faded Fantasy contest. So maybe we'll get a bunch of flash fiction for the stream. But granted, I actually do have a lot of submissions. So we'll see. We'll see what I'm actually able to get to. But definitely, once again, if you want feedback, submit now. Because the sooner you submit, the sooner you can get queued up for future critique streams. And that's really what it comes down to. So the sooner you submit, the sooner you can get queued up. Woo! Hey, what's up, Desdemona? I saw I got like a little twitch right at the end there. Appreciate you, my friend. Thanks, Courtney. It's still in a couple of weeks, but thank you. I appreciate that. In a busy week. Yeah, and for anyone who's just hopping into the stream a little late, you can actually watch everything on the replay. If you're on YouTube, the replay will be available. And if you're on Twitch, welcome to the community, by the way. I love seeing other writers hop into the community. I'm just about to sign off, but we're streaming every day. Come back and join us tomorrow. Come back and join the fun, and we will be back. And most importantly, if you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button on your way out. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining us. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Because it's time to write now.
Right now.
Right